Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees meeting to order on Tuesday, November 19th at 6 p.m. In order for everyone to hear our discussion, would you please turn off or silence any cell phone or other noisemakers you may have? Would you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Nino.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Bell. He's not here. Duffy.
Here.
Berto.
Here.
Peduncle.
Here.
And Zashki.
Here.
Approval of the agenda.
Has Nate been excused? Or?
I haven't heard anything from him. I suspect he'll probably come walking in.
Okay.
I would imagine maybe he went to the fire station.
That could be.
He wasn't there when I went to the fire station.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes as published.
So moved. I'll second.
I'd like to abstain
There's two sets of them.
Yeah,
since
this
I
would-
was not at the October 15th.
Okay, this will be for the October 15th one. Okay. Any changes, additions, deletions, corrections, or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Second set. Get to 'em.
Which was,
I'll make a motion to approve.
That would be for Tuesday, November 5th.
I'll second.
Any corrections, deletions, comments,
Nope.
inserts, outserts? All in favor?
Aye.
Comments and correspondence. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to make a comment about a non-agenda item? Anybody want to make any comments about a non-agenda item? Correspondence.
Okay, in your packets, correspondence and registration materials for the Wisconsin Local Government Leadership Academy, which were received from Charles Law of UW-Madison Local Government Center, were included. There also was a press release from Becky Kerwin of the Door County Land Use Services Department regarding the launch of the housingdoorcounty.org website. And we also received a thank you letter from the Wisconsin Humane Society Door County chapter.
Does anybody on the board have any correspondence they would like to add? Huh?
Silence.
Okay, new business items. Item number 1. Discussion regarding the recommendation from the Plan Commission that the Village Board approve the new development agreement between Alan Goki of Harbor Development and the Village of Sister Bay that pertains to the amended development parcels commonly referred to as the old school property. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
So this was brought to Plan Commission. This is regarding just Al Goki's property, the 2 condos that are going up in the old school property there. All the changes that were made are in the packet. Does anyone have any questions regarding them?
I'd like to make one other change. In light of the Board of Appeals that we had on the Dan Murphy property last week, if you look on page 24, under section 1, village approvals, about halfway down, it talks about the village acknowledges that the exact location of interior walls and room sizes may vary from the attached drawings. One of the issues that has come to light about the Murphy property had to do with him adding an additional bedroom, which then changed the parking requirements. And so I think that we should, I'm going to bring it up at Plan Commission to ask them to change the development agreement template, but I think we have an opportunity here to talk about, however many bedrooms, that they have provided parking for, that cannot change.
Okay. I guess my comment would be, I don't have a problem with that concept, but I think there's always, in any development, minor changes throughout as they go. So if they just want to move something a foot because they can put a beam in better,
I don't have a problem
that's
with that.
okay.
It's just
So if there's some way to not prevent that kind of stuff from happening.
Right. It's
So it doesn't
just
come back for every
the
little thing.
quantity of bedrooms. bathrooms.
Okay.
I would
Everything
even
else.
say bathrooms because of sewer hookup fees, et cetera. I mean, that would,
How about if you say
that would change
something,
too, right?
that if any interior renovations are made that will affect required parking, a referral must be made to the plan commission, would that work?
Well, you can change things that don't pertain to parking, that still may be major,
Right,
Yeah,
so I wouldn't tie it to parking.
yeah.
right. I think it has to do with the bedroom, the quantity of bedrooms that are presented and bathrooms.
Okay, so that will affect the number of,
Parking spaces and the RAUs.
Bo, what do you mean when you say just the Goki part of the old schoolhouse property? I thought the whole property was this.
Well, and you'll see in the second development agreement, the second item, Gary Wiesa has a property on the old school property as well. So
Okay, so
He's
that's the
built-
one
he's
that
building a
was
separate-
remaining that he, okay.
so there's two projects.
Okay, so tell me about Gary's project?
So
Because
Gary.
it is in this one also, with
Yes.
references, so I was trying to
Because of
understand, so it was a little confusing.
Some infrastructure is shared through that, because it's right next to it. So his proposal is two condos, basically, on one building. I'm trying to just go back on this. And so that's shared. I'd have to look at the map and just give more details on that, but it's not two 9-unit condos, it's two condos in a shared development there, and it's to the left. I can't remember, is it on 2 parcels or 1 parcel?
for Gary Wiesa?
For Gary Wiesa.
It's on one
It's on
parcel,
one
it's a
parcel.
duplex.
It's a duplex. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay, I think where I'm confused is, when we talk about the schoolhouse property, I know what property we're talking about. Is this something that was part of the schoolhouse property that was carved out into something
It is.
different?
When-
Or is this in addition to what we normally
When the
talk about
initial
as the?
PUD was created and there were all the lots,
Mhm.
Gary bought one of those lots.
Okay,
And eventually, it's my understanding that a CSM will be done that will split them out and create 2 lots.
Okay.
But for now, it's on one of those lots.
okay, now I understand.
So,
Got it.
okay, so you want the minutes to state then, it should be amended in such fashion that it states, or that it contains a provision that if any interior revisions are made that will affect the number of required parking spaces and/or REUs.
No.
Bedrooms.
No. I want the word bedrooms and bathrooms.
Okay, so leave parking spaces totally out.
Yes.
Great, okay, that will change the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. A referral must be made to the plan commission.
Pat?
So,
Wait, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Pat?
I had a question about minimal tax assessment. So this is a property, I think, that when the original development agreement, there was also a time frame in which we wanted to see construction because it was in the TIF, and if there wasn't, there was going to be minimal tax assessments. Maybe I'm wrong, I thought we were there already with this property. Anybody know that? In other words,
Aren't the minimum assessed value payments being made already, Tasha?
Yes, they were being made on this property.
okay,
They
so
have been made.
my point is, why don't those continue? In my mind, it is what it is. If he has to change the type of development, the idea was it's the same person developing the same piece of land. He was gonna be paying minimum tax assessments on constructing on that lot. Now
We did
Giving
talk
them-
about that at Plan Commission, because I remember you bringing that up. And I thought that that was still supposed to be a kind of like a carryover somehow from the old development agreement, that would
To
be
the new.
due in March.
We talked about that, yeah.
Where
okay.
is it?
Maybe I read it wrong, or maybe it was on the second one I read it. One says something about November of 2020, and another one talks about 2021, and so I just didn't know, is there a gap then between some period in the past or present until then? It seemed as though we're giving him time, a year or two,
Right.
to build, which I get it, that's what it takes to build. It's just my point was, as far as I'm concerned, you're still on the clock from the original one. You can change what you're gonna build.
Right,
If
Right,
you
so
have
he
it
would
billed
still
next year, but You're
owe
still paying the assessments.
for this year.
Okay, in the process.
Is what we talked about, and I believe we agreed upon.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Right.
do you want that
So
on
where
page?
is that written in?
That's what I'm at.
You know,
So if you go to
Believe that it
page
is.
24 of your packets, that's where it talks about those dates.
Yeah, but that's referencing the new development, it doesn't
Yeah,
talk
so
about
what do you want to add to that?
pack lot.
So then it would be, again, probably under village approvals, that referencing the old development agreement, that minimum assessed valuation payments will still be.
Will continue.
We'll continue on the new development.
continue.
Okay.
How about minimum assessed value payments which were imposed as a result of the previous development agreement that was entered into will continue?
Will continue until such time as building one is constructed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
is it
right.
building
Because
one?
to me, once,
Well,
Right.
this is
no,
a whole different thing.
Right,
Yeah.
correct.
well,
Yeah, right, once we're collecting revenue as we're supposed to, I thought the intent was collect some sort of revenue to incentivize them to build. And so if you're not gonna
Yes.
build,
Right.
then you're gonna pay something,
And-
so if you
right,
build,
and so
fine.
as I read this, that what we're talking about would go until November 1st, 2020. And if you hadn't constructed building one by then it would actually increase to what the current value of the new project would be.
Okay, great, that's fine. I didn't read it that way, but if that's the intent, then
I mean,
fantastic.
well, I'm kind of saying, I believe that's what it should be.
Maybe
Oh,
we,
right,
But we
yes,
want to make
yeah.
sure we put it
we
in.
want to
the
make sure, so I think
language.
then we should still
Right.
change the wording.
Yes.
Yeah, the way I read it is though, there isn't one until November. If November comes and he doesn't have a building up, then now the clock's ticking as though you need to make them.
Yes,
then
and,
you'll
and
be
I agree with
molded.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go one step further. So now he's gonna pay the existing minimum assessment now
Right.
through November 1st of 2020, when the other building is supposed to be built.
Got it.
And if at that point in time on November 1st, 2020, if the building is not built, then this kicks in and it's based on the new value of the new project
Okay.
going in. That's what I would like to see.
I agree 100%.
Okay, so it'll say
Okay, can we
further,
write pretty much exactly what Dave said in
Yeah.
the development agreement?
Yes.
Because that was pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
How that was described was very clear.
okay, so I'll
Can
just
you do it
listen to
again?
the tape.
Yeah, we'll just,
We
yeah.
can listen to the tape.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
We'll listen, we
Once it
have it on
comes out,
record.
it's a flash, you know.
We have it on record, we'll go back, listen to the tape and get that
15
language.
minutes.
Rob?
So
I'll
if
write
I'm following along properly, as I think I am here, we're dealing with simply the Goki portion of this property.
Correct.
And we're not dealing with the WISA portion until
Correct.
later. Why on page 25 of the packet, section 2A, conditions imposed by village officials, why do we go on about a Goki development and then interject if Gary WISA does desire to construct a duplex or any of the other type of structure up to the remaining allowable number of units on parcel such and such, boom, 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 boom.
Because
Why-
a CSM has not been done
It's
yet.
not, they're
Yeah,
not
well-
separate just yet.
Okay,
So legally, you
So-
have to reference all
So we
the
still,
property.
because it's on the property, so there's two projects. They have two separate development agreements.
so somewhere in here, the other parcel numbers are listed so that if somebody wanted to draw a conclusion as to whose was whose, it
Yes,
would be
yes.
spelled out?
Yeah, the parcel numbers are in here. Other questions? Somebody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Do you also want that on the condition that no occupancy permits may be issued for any portion of the project unless and until all the condo docs have been recorded?
That was in there.
That was
That
in there.
should be in.
That was in
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we would want that in there.
Item number 2, discussion regarding the recommendation from the Plan Commission that the village board approves the development agreement between Gary Wisa and the, am I saying that correctly? Wisa?
Wisa.
Wisa? Okay, thank you. And the Village of Sister Bay that pertains to a request from amended development parcels for parcel 18142, 3001D, which property is commonly referred to as the old school property. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
So this is the second project on the old school property. It's the duplex that's being proposed. Plan Commission has went through and reviewed the development agreement and has made this recommendation. To your comments as to the last development agreement we just went through, we can make that same change?
Yes,
Would that be
that would
requested?
be my request.
Okay.
Along with, also, on page 60, again, under section 1, village approvals, Item G, line 44, 3 more parking spaces must be depicted somewhere on the parking plan. That's kind of vague. Who was signing off on that? The Plan Commission said, you know, this is what you need,
They're on the plan that's attached to it.
that they, okay.
Yeah.
They're depicted on there and both approved
He
them.
gave us new plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the plans because I've seen them 100 times, but I
Yeah,
guess
he's
I
added-
should have.
He's added the new spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, questions?
Did you wanna I know you had some questions before the meeting
Yeah,
about.
I guess the document itself has a lot of tie-ins to the infrastructure, both the road, the storm, and the sewer, and that's not my responsibility. So when I bought that parcel from Al, the agreement was that he would provide all the infrastructure on that site. And the agreement that I have has a lot of language still, I know we talked about this in the last meeting, but still has a lot of language that it seems like it ties me to the infrastructure and the liability of that. So, that, I think some of this stuff needs to be changed.
So. should
What
we-
specifically and on what page would you,
Okay, so I've got about a half dozen things here we can go through. So on page 1, I guess I just like clarification.
59.
This is this is a little bit different, but on line 28 where they talk about the transient lodging should be allowed. And then down on line 36, transient lodging is not. It's a little bit confusing. I wasn't quite clear. I know in the planning commission meeting, it was discussed that transient lodging would be allowed.
We can take
Yeah,
that
we can go
and
through that.
the transient lodging component out on line 36.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So then on, for example, on line 40, it says the developer, which that's me now, on this parcel, will make and install all public improvements which are reasonably necessary and dedicate the necessary public improvements to the village. So again, that's the infrastructure that I interpret. I would not be responsible.
So we have in the development agreement with Al Goki and the old school property and he's responsible for the infrastructure on there. So before we CSM, I'm just trying to think of how we can manage that going forward so that there's not 2 development agreements on the same parcel holding the infrastructure.
Yeah.
That should be on Al's.
We can take all that out of here.
We could take that out of
That
this
entire
development agreement.
whereas.
Well, wait a minute. Before we go pulling it out of
Yeah.
Al's and pull out of here, the underlying basis is we have to make sure the infrastructure is in fact done.
Yes.
Right. No, you need to leave it.
So we need to leave it there, and it's Al's responsibility to complete it.
Required for all infrastructure on the site,
Right.
regardless of who owns the building.
Correct.
That way, you make sure everything's covered.
you add wording to what's already there.
So we can say,
So it's either, even if there is a CSM, it's all the parcels of the existing as of today's date, he's responsible for infrastructure.
Yeah.
So that
And
even
how
at a
about
future
if we
date it's
say-
divided, you can say, hey, no, but as of this date, that was part of this CSM, you're responsible.
All right, so how about if you say that harbor development, okay, so where it says on line 39, whereas the developer and the village desire to enter into this agreement in order to ensure that Harbor Development SBS LLC will make and install all public improvements, then that will clarify that that's what Al's
so
responsible
it's
for.
to Al.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys have discussed that. So you know, and Al knows
Yeah, it was in the offer of purchase. Again, he provided all the
it's all in there.
Well,
utilities,
he says
roadways.
all on his.
The agreement I had was to
It
put that
says
stone
all.
wall up on 57. So I spent the money to put the stone wall
Okay.
up, which he wanted for that whole parcel. And obviously it was gonna help me level out the lot that I had. In regards to the CSM too, because I did pay tax on that property last year, I thought it was subdivided as a separate CSM already.
Well, you've got a separate lot. Al's gonna be doing a CSM with his property.
Yeah.
So you've got your lot. That
Yeah.
won't be the subject of the CSM, is my understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
So.
Yeah,
who's
but
the-
that's not
correct.
but
Who's-
that's
who's
in
going to do-
conflict.
Who's gonna do the CSM for his property?
He doesn't have to have one. He bought a lot. If you look at the plans on here,
But it's gonna be separated out as a separate CSM.
no, it's not a CSM. It's just a lot.
Well, then
Al
why-
will do a CSM to combine all 5 of his lots.
Okay, so are there currently two lots there? No,
There's like
There's
five.
five, I think, yeah.
So
So the
Al will
lot
combine.
that this gentleman bought, the legal definition of that lot are not changing from when he purchased it to what he's gonna construct?
It will when Al does the CSM, but that's not Gary's responsibility. It'll all tie in together. There'll be 2 parcels up there rather than 6.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to my original question, whose responsibility it is to do the CSM?
It's my understanding it's from you and Al, it's you and Al, right?
Harbor Development.
Okay. Harbor Development, which is Al, will do that.
If that, for some reason, would not happen as needed or in a timely enough manner, is there something that has to be accounted for in this agreement that would ensure we're not gonna penalize?
Well, I think
Gary?
I think by saying harbor
I
development,
mean, if it never comes to be and that part isn't upheld, Gary should not be on the hook for anything if he's in due diligence done everything he was supposed to do.
well, from the infrastructure standpoint, then in this development agreement, we could be putting Harbor Development LLC instead of the developer.
Yeah,
That would take the liability off of Gary.
Gary.
Well, that's who's responsible for it, so long as that doesn't go defunct and it
Yeah.
becomes somebody else. Is the only-
Okay, so what other sections did you have questions about, Gary?
Page 4.
So that's gonna be page 61 in your packets, or 62, I'm sorry.
I had a question on line 31, where it says developers paid all permit fees, impact fees, connection fees in full, and has reimbursed the village for administrative costs. I had a question on the administrative costs. What am I liable for there?
The administrative cost, is that
Generally engineering
Engineering
fees, legal
plans.
fees, things like that.
the permitting?
And is that standard on any lot?
It is,
that's-
yeah.
Okay.
Now, I have a question on that. If Goki is responsible for all of the infrastructure, then shouldn't he be responsible for all the costs related to any of the surveys and plans, et cetera, related to that, even if it happens to do with
I would
parts
say,
of infrastructure?
no, if it's got to do with his development. Anything else?
And then line 43 through 47, again, kind of hits on that construction of surface and stormwater drainage facilities. That's all kind of that, there's 2 ponds there that are going in, and that's how I interpret all that language, so that, again, would not be my responsibility.
So that will be Harbor Development
Yeah,
LLC.
that's not on my parcel.
You know, you're not adding harbor development to his development agreement, are you? His language? Is that what you're?
It'll just say that in accordance with the provision, the agreements you guys entered into, Harbor Development, the board is finding that Harbor Development SB LLC is responsible for that.
Wouldn't it just be, I mean, not to get the village involved, wouldn't that just be between, if he's buying a lot for development, it would be part of that agreement, not necessarily.
So just take that out.
Yeah, it just seems like. No.
Because you're talking about site grading and everything else for the entire parcel. So it happens, his parcel doesn't have the holding ponds and stuff on it, Harbor Development's parcel has it on,
Got it, yes.
but directly affects his parcel.
Got it, okay.
So Harbor has to be shown as being responsible for it.
Okay.
Anything else, Gary?
Next page, page 5, there's a whole section in there on surface and stormwater drainage, which again, I think that would go to Harbor Development.
I go from 4 to page 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you guys only got the things that change.
Yeah, we only have the changes on these documents.
Okay, so what page is that, Gary? I'm sorry.
It's section B, surface and stormwater drainage.
On what page of the development agreement?
5.
Page 5, okay.
Well, I don't know, just a question.
So,
If the building, I would think, the finished grade of the building is going to affect the finished surface grade. And to me, that's not infrastructure, that's based upon the construction of the building. If that changes even 6 inches and you say, hey, I want to make sure it runs off, and now that's almost, seems like something that's the whoever's putting that building up, as opposed to.
That would be the developer.
Okay. I just don't know if that's,
Well, okay, the developer of his
Yeah,
project?
his project
So he
would be
would be
responsible
responsible
for
for it, not
drainage.
Harbor.
Yes,
Right.
not Harbor.
right. I mean, if the ponds, if they're not on your land, I get that, but if you're finished building and now you do finished grade and make sure that the stormwater, because of your building, I would think that's your responsibility. It'd be any builder's responsibility of that said structure, not the greater surrounding area.
so I guess my understanding was when the engineering was done on that site, that parcel actually helped benefit the entire site as far as how much drainage that they needed to have. So my lot alone did not require any rain gardens or any storm drainage. So I just want to make sure that I'm not responsible for any of the ponds that are off my property.
No, it's only the drainage for your property.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand the site grading, but it says construction of surface and stormwater drainage facilities. That seems to me like those drainage ponds.
Should we change it
No,
to?
no. I don't think that says anything at all about the drainage ponds. I think that says on your site, you're responsible for the drainage issues.
Yeah.
So you don't slope it away from the ponds, you'd have to slope it towards the
Towards
ponds.
ponds.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay. I guess that was just a question I wasn't quite clear on.
Interpretation.
right.
Page 6. Again, that whole
Again,
section,
you don't
F,
have-
water main and sanitary sewer main system, that language, that whole section should probably come out of there. Or at least, again, identify that that's Harbor's
Yeah, let's put
responsibility.
Harbor, let's not take that out.
So it's the sanitary main section?
Yeah, water main and sanitary sewer main system.
Okay.
And do we know if that language then appears in the other one, that it's clear so that
It
some
doesn't.
lawyer in
Yeah.
the future
Yeah.
doesn't
Yes.
say, hey, well, it was for these 2 buildings you approved, not this one, I'm not responsible. Yeah, you
No,
are.
it's
No,
right here.
yes. That's-
Okay, but I'm also trying to be cautious here. We're making changes that we don't have in front of us, okay? If there's infrastructure, once it's in place and installed, just like any other homeowner, if my lateral goes out between my property and the village's property, I'm responsible for it, not the village. Are we saying that Harbors is responsible for his laterals and everything from within his property?
No, just the main, no, I would, the laterals would be the homeowner's responsibility, I would assume, up to the main, but this says sanitary sewer main system.
Okay, so the question is, what's the system?
Right.
Right. I guess we're probably gonna have to get Al or somebody else involved here from Harbor, because we're throwing a lot of stuff in this agreement that says Harbor's gonna do it. Harbor may be going, wait a minute, that's not what I'm thinking.
Well, I think you could separate it by the laterals, have that language in there that the homeowner would be responsible for the laterals up to the main.
And even if you do that, once these changes are made, and if we make a motion to approve as presented and amended, that it be contingent upon the village president reading those changes and making sure it says what we want.
And I think Harbor should be
Right.
signing off.
Harbor
on
should
the
be signing
Or do
off
we
on it
want
too,
to table
correct.
it and
Yeah.
after we come up with all the changes and table it till next
Could have
month?
Harbor
and
sign
have
off
it-
on this.
I mean, I don't know if they want to get moving on this and postponing it another month, that it, would create a problem or not. That's why I was saying then if Dave signed off on it, once it was done,
Yeah.
that Plan Commission periodically does that.
And I'm fine with that.
He's saying a month won't make a difference.
Make a
but-
difference.
But I agree, I think there should be a spot for Harbor. If Harbor's
Right.
named in a legal document, they need to approve what's in the legal
I
document.
need to
that
know what's coming.
we've
Gary
got.
and Chris, are you okay with postponing this for a month or no?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying we need to postpone it for a month, okay? If we're gonna do it, as long as we get all the revisions, and I'm okay with it, based on what we're talking about tonight, and Harbor's okay with it, then there's no reason to delay them.
Okay.
But,
So we can still add the contingency that you sign off on the final document.
In the motion.
Yes.
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, anything else, Gary?
Well, there's stormwater management language on page 7 also under additional improvements. Maybe take a look at that just to make sure that,
What page, I'm sorry?
7.
page 7,
Stormwater improvements?
Did you say improvements, Gary?
yeah, it's under additional improvements, section
Additional
H.
improvements,
Okay,
section
six,
H.
Okay,
And then also right below it, in section 7, site-specific requirements, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in there regarding fire hydrants, shall be accepted and placed in service before any above-ground building framing begins. So that would be Harbor's responsibility for the fire hydrants.
You can make those changes.
Next
Anything
time,
else?
I'll make the whole agreement in here, so,
We only added the changes, yeah, we can.
but in the future, just be able to see it. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
And then section 9 on page 7, this is the ultimate responsibility of the proper design and installation. Streets, water facilities, drainage facilities, ditches, landscaping are upon the developer, that being me. So obviously that's got to come out there or changed.
Well, you're still gonna be responsible for all of that on your site.
Yeah.
Right, on my site,
On
but
your site.
it's very broad here. It sounds like, when I see, again, drainage facilities, that's ponds that are not on my site.
But it could be,
But
that could be as
streets-
simple, that's also as simple as grading from your property to the ponds.
Okay, streets,
What about streets?
well, I'm not responsible for putting the street in.
Okay?
So it's the ultimate responsibility for the proper design and installation of streets. I have nothing to do with the street.
Okay?
Maybe we should have meetings with the developer in the office before it comes to planner board.
And that was it.
Okay, that's it? Okay.
okay, you want to review a potential motion?
Sure.
Okay. That the village board accepts the recommendation from the plan commission that the development agreement between Gary Weisa and the village of Sister Bay that pertains to construction of a duplex on parcel number 18142300001D, which property is commonly referred to as the old school property, be approved as amended. Prior to the time that the development is actually executed by any of the required parties, the village president and Al Goki of Harbor Development SBLLC must review all revisions and indicate in writing that they find those revisions to be acceptable.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
basically, you just initial any of the revisions.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any other discussion or questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3, discussion regarding a recommendation from the Marina Committee that the village board pass and adopt resolution 411-1119, which requests assistance from the Wisconsin DNR for recreational boating facilities grant funding for the purpose of making renovations to the small break wall, i.e. J-Dock, and the marina public restrooms. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Yep, so, as we'll talk about later, in the board meeting, there are some repairs that are going through the marina, that will be going to RFP. There's a grant that is available, and there's a timing. They have to get everything submitted before February. And so if you want to add on, Pat, as the marina chair, if there's any other information that needs to be provided.
No, at this point, we're putting together an RFP, so we're not asking for any money to be spent or any approvals on anything. We're just looking to go out to prospective contractors to provide us quotes on here's what needs to be done, here's what it's gonna cost, and then it'll all come back to you in a nice neat package as to here's what's gonna be done, here's what it's gonna cost, here's how we're gonna pay for it.
So when we have something like this where the marina manager and the village administrator are jointly acting on behalf of the village on the application for the grant, do we have a process as to that has to be reviewed by Bo or the village administrator, or is there somebody does it and somebody approves it, or is it whoever happens to be around just does it and sends it independently?
No, I'll review that, definitely, but I'm using Amy because she knows most of the work that has to be done, and she's doing the day-to-day site, so she understands the burden that has to be done on that, and then I approve that before that goes out.
So she knows you gotta look at it before it
Yes.
gets sent in.
And ultimately, anything that comes back would end up going through Bo, Finance,
Yes.
come back to the board for approval and acceptance. Number of checkpoints along the way.
I'll make the motion, we adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 4, discussion regarding a proposal for upgraded telephone services from Charter Communications. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Yes, so there's a little bit of background on this. Staff has met with someone from Charter Communications in discussions with upgrading our telecommunications system. Our current service, we've had some issues from a customer service standpoint and from a, user friendliness issue. I mean, it's just a little bit outdated. So we did some research and we had this person come in and make a proposal. It's not too much of a cost savings, but it's a big technological leap for us. We have more, ideas that we can work around, such as hunt groups, and other ideas that we can use with this technology. So what we're proposing isn't really a cost savings or a huge cost savings, but it does give us a lot more usage of our technology as far as our phones go.
And the hugest or the biggest advantage that we'll have, the phone that's in the elevator that was ringing at the last meeting, just ringing and ringing and ringing, that won't happen anymore.
So that it's not just the administration building. Village Hall will get a change, that one phone here, and then the Parks building, correct?
No, parks will
Parks.
just stay on internet.
They get the internet, yeah.
Excellent. Motion to accept.
Were there any other questions? Comments? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Discussion regarding a proposal from the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Chief for repair of the portion of the Sister Bay Fire Station roof. Consider a motion for action.
Yes, so as you can see, I'm just pulling it up on here.
Page 108.
Yep, on page 108. Chris is here also who can help chime in on this, but we did get responses from our RFP for the roof repairs. Does anyone have any questions on material in the packet?
Well, one question I had, if I'm reading this right, it looks as though Mr. Till's consultation services are 25% of the project, in addition to the project?
Yeah, he charges a percent, off the top of my head, yeah, it sounds about.
One's 15,
20,
one's 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious, that seemed high compared to other projects that the village has performed.
Yeah, I think this is a relatively small project, so the percentage is relatively high. In a larger project, the percentage is probably, because he still has a significant amount of design time and oversight time, even though the project is small. In a bigger project, the percentage slides.
Any other questions? If not, we could use a motion.
Does Janelle have it written?
That the village board accepts the recommendation from Chris Hecht, the fire chief, and awards phase 2 of the roof reconstruction project for the Sister Bay Fire Station to Teelan's Construction.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? I'm sorry.
Sorry, the one question that I had, Chris, do you need any other language since Liberty Grove is also involved, or is that gonna give you what you need?
Liberty Grove is not involved.
Oh, okay, so this is just Sister
The
Bay.
county will be involved. They're a portion more, they'll pay a portion of it based on.
I guess, does it, what I'm asking is, does it have to say the village's share?
No.
No.
Okay,
It's just our building,
okay.
just our building.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Item 6, discussion regarding the request for proposals for the Marina Public Restroom renovation project. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Yes, so following the previous motion for the grant funding, this is the discussion on one of the RFPs. This is for the public restrooms. Marina Committee met this evening and discussed making some amendments to the RFP that's presented in front of you. The changes are going to, for this specific RFP, are going to be replacing the word replace with repair and other such synonyms. So it's just replacement. It changes the scope of the project as well as adding the detail to the scope of the project. So under description of services, we will add the exact details of the work that needs to be done, such as drainage issues, wall repairs, things of that nature. And then lastly, at the end, under schedule, it says the village anticipates that the Economic Development Committee will review. That's going to be changed to Marina Committee.
And ultimately, we'll come back here.
Yeah.
for-
Yeah.
I had a question on page 123, basically in the first sentence, from qualified engineering firms. Does this need to be engineered?
No. I wouldn't think so.
No, so-
We're not changing, as far as I know, we're not changing walls
Yeah.
or footprint, hopefully.
So-
We're repairing the existing.
It's
structure.
there.
And
It's
those are
already
the
there.
kind of things that we need to refine a little bit.
Yeah.
This is gonna get tweaked.
Yes.
Okay,
But yes. I
But
would-
you're on
engineering,
that.
Yes.
Then I'm
engineering will
comfortable.
come out.
Yes.
okay.
Right, that's why we replaced, take out replace or
Right.
reconstruction with
Repair.
reclaim, repair, kind of spruce up, fix, whatever you want to,
Yes.
This isn't rebuild the road and we need to make the Taj Mahal out of it. It's just get it level again.
Okay. Then on the, still on page 123, where it talks about proposal requirements, and there's 2 RFPs in here for the JDOC
JDOC.
and for the bathrooms. Well, you have both of them addressed a proposal for the Village of Sister Bay redevelopment plan. How do you know which one's going to be which?
Good catch. So we will,
And
Fix
it's
that.
not a
Change it.
redevelopment plan.
It is not.
Yep.
No.
We can
The
change
first
that.
one should say for the village of, for the Sister Bay Marina bathroom project, and the other one should say for the Sister Bay Marina JDOC rehabilitation or whatever.
Yep.
Yes.
yes.
We can make that change.
Yep.
Those were my only comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I think we need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 7, discussion regarding request for proposals for the Village of Sister Bay JDOC reconstruction project. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Yeah, so similar to the previous RFP, this one will have an amended version as well. The language will be changing from Economic Development also to Marina Committee. However, on this one, there will be a scope of engineering that needs to be done because we don't exactly know what repairs need to be done, so that will be part of this RFP.
We're not re-engineering it, but we want an engineer to look at it.
Yes.
To make sure that if something structurally needs to be brought back to its, original
Yeah.
spec, that it will be.
So this one does not also have the exact description of services because we just don't know what those are yet.
And is it correct at the bottom of page 127, the selected firm will be expected to assist the village in the preparation and submittal of the appropriate regulatory permitting and grant application?
I think that that probably needs to be left in there because we really, on this one, do not know the scope
Yeah.
of the work.
We don't know how much it'll
And
cost.
may need their assistance with the,
Yeah.
And they will be required to attend the Wisconsin Waterways Commission? And present the project for grant funding?
Yeah.
I'm just
No,
asking.
Actually, my pen, I didn't have my special pen. I was taking notes when I went through there. When I read that, I thought,
Yeah.
the attending the thing, because last year it was Wausau in the middle of the week. To say to one of these guys, hey, as a contractor, you gotta take a Wednesday in the middle of the week of construction season in August to go hear that you got an award, I don't know. And I think it's strongly encouraged that somebody that's getting the award be there, so it may be somebody from the village, but I also agree, I'm not sure we need because that's the award. I think there is a period of time in which there can be dialogue, that they should be accessible for questions related to grant funding, but I don't think they would need, in my mind, shouldn't need to be required to be present for the award of the grant.
Okay.
So-
Okay, but I don't take it, that this is the way it reads. To me, it says
Right.
that your engineering firm, or whoever, will present the project for grant funding at this commission, like you have to go and prove the project or something to them.
Yeah, and well,
I mean, based on this language.
right, I guess
This doesn't say the
depending upon
award.
the project, maybe they would. We didn't need to do that when we did the parking lot.
right.
So, but if whoever approves the grant says, hey, we want somebody there, I guess maybe it could read something to the effect of, at the,
I mean,
Well,
as long as you're
right,
addressing it,
I don't
they're
think
still
that-
tweaking.
Right, I don't think there'll be any problem getting somebody to go get the check.
yeah.
But I'll drive to Wausau, that's not a problem.
Okay, we can
Right.
tweak that.
But if there's
Okay.
questions, right, be accessible for
accessible for-
questions related to the grant funding, something to that effect, that
Yeah.
yes.
Did somebody press the hold button on the thermostat? After our last meeting?
Oh,
I think it's cooling off in here.
It is cool.
it is.
Tasha has a jacket over her legs.
Yeah, Peter.
We can make that an agenda item next time we're here.
I think the cold will speed us
Item
up.
number 4, hold button.
And here I thought Denise was always watching expenses.
I can't think when my brain is cold. Maybe that's good for all of you.
Thanks for looking out for me.
Well, I was kind of starting to feel something on my ankle, so.
Okay, so did we have a motion on this yet or not?
Nope.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
I did.
Okay.
Item number 8, discussion regarding a recommendation from the finance director that the village board pass and adopt resolution 415-11919, which declares the village's intent to use future borrowings to reimburse the village for expenditures related to the upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant. Consider motion for action.
So there are several engineering bills currently that are outstanding related to the treatment plant upgrade project. The intention would be to use funds from the funding that we want to get in spring, since we cannot cannot hold these bills until spring to pay them. We need to do a resolution that would allow us to pay them ahead of time and then reimburse ourselves later.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion regarding a proposal from Robert W. Baird for consulting services to create a formal and long-term CIP plan. Consider motion for action.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 10, discussion on the provisions of ordinance 270-111-919, which aligns chapter 14 of the Village of Sister Bay Municipal Code to buildings and building regulations to meet the current state of Wisconsin Administrative Code. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
So some background on this. We had Brett, our building inspector, come to us and say that we have to update our codes to state regulations that allows Brett to do electrical inspections. He is licensed to do so. So this is just some housekeeping.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Discussion regarding President Reno's recommended appointments. Consider a motion for action if appropriate. I have no appointments this evening, but I would like to mention a couple people that were interested in the committees have backed out. So we are looking for volunteers to be involved for the Plan Commission, the Board of Appeals, and the Library Board. And I think the Library Board has the potential of being the chair. So if you know anybody, and we can also hopefully advertise this, Janelle, put the word out
Okay.
on our email chain or whatever, that we are again looking for individuals.
What about the Village Hall Committee?
That too.
So zoning board of appeals, plan
Although
commission.
Chris Heck said he did want to be on that, and
Yep.
Louise Hausen said, so that's two.
That's two.
Okay, so it's board of appeals, plan commission, village hall, ad hoc committee, and what else?
Plan, BOA, library, and village
Oh,
hall.
library.
If you're looking for a trustee for the Village Hall Committee, Dave, I'll serve if you need, if no one else is interested and you want me to do it, I'm
Okay.
willing to do it.
So that's what we're going to be looking for. Item 12, report on county activities from County Supervisor Dave Leno. I think I mentioned last time that we were finished the budget and had the public hearing on that. Today, the administrative committee met and held a public hearing on the Door County Transportation Plan. As you may or may not be aware, there's a pretty large financial squeeze on the transportation system that was put in place by the county a couple of years ago. The county board agreed a few months back to continue it, but to try and make adjustments in the service. We hired a transportation director. We also created a transportation department. Up until this point in time, it had been operated by the director of human services. And that's where it originally started. It's grown way beyond that. It's grown beyond what, he has enough going on without having to have all the transportation headaches that were going on. So we created a transportation department starting January 1st. We have hired Pam Bush, who was involved in transportation. She will be the transportation director. The transportation department will be housed out of the ADRC in Sturgeon Bay. And we had a presentation today, had the hearing today. We slightly increased prices on some of the routes. So when I say slightly, if it was $3.75, it went up to $4. So it went, like 25 cents. Or it went, if it was a $1 round trip, maybe it became $2 round trip. But all of these prices are based on who you are, your age, and what your situation is. If you have disabilities, if you're aged, whatever, those prices are subsidized in some way, shape, form, or another. So those are kind of like the base prices. So they had to ask, because these are federal dollars and state dollars, you have to have a public hearing, which we did, to then specify and accept the price increases effective January 1st. So that's what we accomplished today. The Service itself, everybody who currently has service will continue to have service. It'll just be done slightly different. For instance, they used to run what was called connector routes, multiple days a week, where they'd go from Sturgeon Bay all the way up to Sister Bay and all the way back down, and from Sturgeon Bay down south and back up. And they did that multiple times, and it was very low ridership on it. I mean, in a week, you might have 2 riders for something that was doing 3 or 4 or 5 days a week. So that was an obvious choice to do that. There are a number of components to the transportation system. There's door-to-door rides, there's the ADRC bus, there's the Sunshine House bus. They will continue to operate the routes, but some of them will be on an on-call basis. So if you live in Southern Door and you need a ride to your doctor, if you call the day before, the arrangement will be made, they'll come and pick you up and you'll get to your doctor. But you won't have to sit at Marchands and be there at 9 o'clock in the morning to pick up the feeder to take you into town and then take you back at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It'll be kind of an on-call reservation system. So that's kind of the basic changes that are being made. And we're hopeful that the Transportation Director, Pam Bush, will continue to evaluate and look at it and make changes as necessary as we go along and tweak. But this is also based on a 3-year grant program from the federal government. So we get the grants, and we work with the local organizations, we work with Dortron, we work with the local taxi services to put this all together in a hodgepodge that makes sense and actually works. And the only person that we had speak today was just concerned to make sure that somebody, if they didn't have the money, to make sure that they were going to get a ride and that whatever they needed would be done or be subsidized, so nobody was left out. So that was what was done today. Now, that simple explanation, but this has been going on for many, many months. It's been about an 8-month project of the county and Human Services to get to this point. And it involves, we also had to go out and renew the contract with door-to-door. The door-to-door Vantage running around, that's actually contract service. So we had to get them to agree to the contract first before we could go back and restructure what we were going to do with the transportation system. So that was accomplished last month. So this month we were able to finalize where we wanted to go with it. So.
Did the county have any conversations about the Supreme Court case about the food trucks in Fish Creek?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Do we know the outcome of that at all? And
I have not heard that. Where county-wise, that would come through the RPC, and I have not seen or heard anything from the RPC on that particular issue in a while.
because I thought the town lost.
Yeah, I
I
haven't heard.
thought that was simply they were looking to squelch it, saying you don't, it doesn't need to be heard, negating his ability to wage his case. I thought they said, no, we're denying the town's request for kind of summary judgment of no, make it go away. This is a real deal. Now it goes to trial, was the way I took it.
Okay, all I heard was there was
The
some
town lost.
ruling.
Yeah,
That's all I heard.
The town
Okay.
petitioned that nobody else needs to get involved. We can decide that this is a no-go. And he said, no, I'm appealing that, and it went beyond.
Okay.
And I think it was the state Supreme Court said, no, we're denying the village's petition. This needs to go back and be heard.
Okay.
And Gibraltar is one of those communities or townships where they have county zoning in place. And in this particular case, the town disagrees with the county zoning ordinance that was in place and disagrees that they could give the permit to allow the food truck to be there.
Okay.
So that's the basis of that.
Okay. Thank you for knowing something about that.
That's the way I read it anyway. I could be wrong about that, but the way I read it is basically now it's back to start.
Sure.
Poor guy's been at this for 2 months or 2 years. And
Any other questions on that? The other hot button issue that always is on people's minds is the mill pond drawdown that you occasionally will see tidbits about. It progresses. I go out there on a regular basis and look at it. The county facilities and parks people are out there every day, multiple times a day. And over the weekend on Sunday, they were out 4 times. Yesterday, they were out 3 times, looking at, checking it all. So it's going down very, very slowly. last week, when I was there, it was still going over the top of the dam, but it was down a little bit. Today, when I got out there, it's probably down about 8 or 9 inches. So it's going down very, very slowly. They're expecting probably an 8 to 10 week drawdown, depending upon how much precipitation you get, because it is a river after all that's running in there. So if you get a lot of rain or wet, then it runs in, it fills back up a little bit, but it is in the process of going down, so the drawdown does continue.
Why are they looking at it so frequently? Like every 3 times in a day? Is it to see the dead bodies that are gonna show up?
There has been a great deal of angst. There's been a great deal of angst and several special interest groups that have been very concerned about the drawdown and have been very opposed to it.
Okay.
And it's gotten involved at the state level, the federal level, and we're working with both the state and federal, land management, DNR, to stay on top of this, check it all out, make sure everything is fine as we are going along. The drawdown will probably take 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a little longer, but ultimately it'll go down to the level of where the Anape River is its normal flow level, and that's where it'll stay for a 2-year period of time. The idea is when this pond is drawn down, all the sediment will compact over a period of time. A lot of the invasive species of weeds and animals will no longer be there as a result of the drawdown. The river will continue to flow during this whole time. You're not impeding the river by doing this. At the end of the 2-year period of time, they'll close the gate back up. It'll fill back up over a period of several weeks or a couple of months, back up to the current dam level. But what'll happen is instead of having 12, 18, 20 inches of water, you'll now have multiple feet of water. It's filled up with sediment over the years.
Yeah.
Any dam you put in place, that's what happens. It fills up with sediment behind it. So it's gotten very shallow, and as a result of it getting shallow, if you think about it, the shallower the pond gets, the farther the water spreads.
Yep.
Okay. And so that's what's been going on.
Okay. Cool.
So
Thanks.
that's why we're doing it. Okay. Item number 12, report by the village administrator on village activities and projects.
Yeah, so as you can see in my report, I have the basement filling for one of the businesses here for Monday the 18th. I've not checked in on him, but I will do so tomorrow to make sure. The pipes will need to be through there during that process, just because they need time for that concrete to settle in and everything, but the goal is to get them out before we get any more major snowfalls. I don't want the county having to worry about those pipes on the road, so.
Okay. You ever heard any more about Anika's?
I've not. I'll have to confirm, but I believe she's working with the same people, so she's probably on the same timeline or a little after. But I can confirm on that one. The other thing too, for the groundbreaking, I don't have a time just yet, but I will pass that along when I get that.
Okay.
And I just thought it would be nice to just note about the GIS system that we're working with now. Mike Skell has reported to me that staff is utilizing this and learning and really enjoying this tool. So it's something I really want to keep pushing in the community. I think that's a big asset that we can utilize in the future.
And I see the marine manager's report is in there, right?
Nice little shout out to Chad on page 150. Nice catch.
Yeah.
I don't think it would've, I think it was done.
I got one question on the marina manager report. Section 1. This helped us to meet and exceed the 2019 transient revenue budget. How do you meet and exceed the budget? You either meet it or you exceed it, right?
It's wrong anyway, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry too much.
Yeah. It wasn't accurate.
There was some duplications due to multiple software
Yeah,
programs, and
that's-
we came in, I think, at like 190,000.
90.
So
So we,
close, but
yeah,
not quite
we,
there.
so we did not meet budget.
Right.
Yeah.
But given the fact that it was a rough June and September
Yeah.
voting, that
That's
is
a good
pretty
number.
good to be
Okay.
that close.
Yes.
And that language is good sales. I mean, we not only met our goal, we exceeded our goal,
Right.
right?
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on the reports?
I do on facilities manager.
That's next.
Okay. Where Dan talked about the streets, they're filling potholes and cutting branches. With all the traffic that's in and out of Nicolay Bank, South Highland Road is horrendous, and there is no vision triangle. If you go, you know, through the drive-through and then out, and I don't know how much right-of-way the village has there, whatever, but I think some serious attention needs to be paid to vision triangles up there and finding where our right-of-way is and what maybe we could do on trimming
So,
back.
I don't know if this is in one of your vision triangles, but that tree on the corner,
No, that's not my concern.
No, there's a hedgerow, you're talking about the hedgerow.
The hedgerow, yeah.
Yeah, now you've used the ATM, and now
Yeah.
you're coming out to turn onto Highland, to go
Yeah.
back to the highway, there's a big hedgerow, and you gotta be kinda out in the
You're way
lane
out.
in order
Yeah.
to see around.
Yeah,
And that road's narrow, or it
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
narrow
Yeah.
to me to begin with.
It is.
okay?
But I know the tree is coming out, but yeah.
So Bo, you'll take care of that, right?
Yep.
Anything else on Danny's report? No? Utilities? Okay. Moving right along. Review of the financial statements and consideration of a motion to approve the monthly bills.
I had a question on page 155 that I called Tash about, which was the going garbage bill for $12,000, and obviously a chunk of that, I presumed, was from Fall Festival. Did you extrapolate that, Tasha?
Yeah, there were 4 dumpsters delivered at $175 each for Fall Fest. The rest of that is general September trash.
So only
Or October
$700?
trash. Yeah. But you can expect that because of the size of Fall Fest, everybody's trash bins were very full, and you had a lot of people up here, so your bill is going to be higher, and there is no way to, 4 bins is as close as I can get you to exact Fall Fest trash.
Okay. Well, and then I called Louise, because last year, I think Parks implemented $50 to go towards the village picking up the garbage. And SBAA has not written the check to the village yet, but she said it was going to be up for $1,100. So that takes care of then the dumpsters and then $400 worth of some employees' time on doing that. So that's, I just kind of wanted to see how that impacted that $50. So I think that was a fair number. I think that works out okay. It was very, very busy, so.
And we did run the wages too. You had asked last year about wages, so we ran those as well. Fall Fest weekend wages were $3,815.70. So that's quite a bit for one weekend.
Yeah, but pretty much all of it's overtime, right?
Yeah, it's all overtime.
Time and a
yeah.
half.
So,
And just for another tidbit of information, Fall Fest weekend, 3 days. Last year, I believe we did 900,000 gallons of water over those 3 days. This year it was 1.2. So we were up 300,000 gallons just for those 3 days. Now, to break that down, we had Pat Quinn's development, we had the new 12 unit, we had Goose and Twigs this year. I think there was one other small place. And the bathrooms in Waterfront Park were open, the new bathrooms that we built, which in the past they have not been. So that just goes to show that I think they were used a lot. And that was a good thing. And I hope because they were open this year that they are never closed during Fall Festival again.
Yes, definitely.
You're here.
Any other questions on the financials?
Don't we want to do a motion?
I was just gonna do that.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion, we pay the bills, $551,203.82.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? We'll go to committee reports right away. Admin has not met, Admin Comp has not met, Comtech has not met, Coastal Byways.
Two things, Dave. One, I spoke with Danny on this already. For those of you who don't know, there's a coastal byway kiosk that every village has that we have not had ours in position because of the bathroom construction and everything else. We're to the point where we absolutely need to have a scenic or positioned photo of that for the byway website. I talked with Danny about temporarily positioning it near the Christmas lighting after Capture the Spirit, so that the committee likes that idea of having the holiday lights and the kiosk there. We'll get some digital pictures of that, get that taken care of, and then Danny can hibernate it until it gets permanently positioned in that area come season. Moving forward, the committee's moving forward with an application for both National Byway status and All-American Road status. There'll be a letter of support for all municipalities to sign that's being drafted. What we're hopeful of is that in addition to getting the village to sign it, that through whatever channels we were in contact with the various government officials that came for the Pebble Beach ceremony, that we could get copies of that to them to sign, possibly have them help shepherd that through the process. All-American Road qualifications, it's dependent on, you have to have historical qualifications, scenic, geological, and hospitality aspects and qualifications. We meet it all. My understanding, based on the way Annie explained it, is if you get either National Byway or All-American Road status, you leapfrog ahead to getting grant money that comes in, for those types of things. So I'll keep you posted on that, and we'll be getting that letter around when it's drafted.
Okay, any questions? DCECD.
Nate is not here, but I was in attendance to the DCEDC. They're just plugging away at their fundraising, time to bring in money this time of year, so.
Hit their budget. Economic Development has not met. Finance. Breathing a sigh of relief, right?
Yes.
Fire.
Meeting on 11/6. Minutes are not out yet. Basically just a standard meeting. Outstanding.
One thing that did come up that would be interesting for us to keep in mind moving forward is, it looks like we had a presentation from, and I don't remember the lady's name, but the representative from the Northern Door Rotary Club a number of months back.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Heck brought her in to just talk about how they were getting their main focus to be on assisting in affordable housing or any developments towards affordable housing in any way, shape, or form. So we're gonna have a follow-up presentation from her, or just touch base with her again, so that she knows we'd like to be kept abreast of that for anything that might happen down the line.
Okay. Historical Society.
Minutes of October 3rd are in the packet. Any questions?
Holiday Lighting has not met, but they're going up. Library Building.
October customer traffic material usage surpassed Bailey's Harbor, Egg Harbor, Ephraim, Fish Creek combined. One interesting item of note, if anyone is familiar with the artist Bridget Cosma, or her partner Tom Seagard, they have pledged to the library a 6-foot by 4-foot painting of Newport State Park Forest that is currently shown at the Mill Road Gallery in town. It will be willed to the village library, and we will be in an agreement with them for the care and upkeep of it once it does get passed to the library. They have it's always been their desire to have this in a public place for the village. They've turned down offers for up to $65,000 for this painting. So if anyone has any interest in seeing it, you can go over there and check it out.
Marina.
We had just had a meeting today, heard about what that was discussed at the meeting.
Parks.
Marina Fest.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Oh, Marina Fest, yes.
yeah.
Marina Fest.
Oh!
Slow down, Dan.
Met on the 14th, $11,203 profit.
Great.
So it turned out pretty good. Of course, some of that will go back to our paying us back. Also, I did hear Chris mention that all bands that they had this year performing have agreed to come back next year. And we found that that seems to drive attendance, keeping the bands here, so.
Makes sense.
So I don't know if this is appropriate or the time, but as we're talking about bands, and I think there was some.
We're going to talk in closed session about some of that.
I figured sooner or later somebody's going to get the gist.
Pat, you're turning red. You're turning red.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Parks. No questions? The boys are working hard at the moment. Personnel.
Personnel had a meeting, we've got minutes in the packet. I liked, we went out and got multiple quotes for employee benefits. For the first time, we had a single-digit increase in recent years, and we're decreased. Even better.
Double digit.
Double-digit decrease.
And we're offering 2 different plans, and they invited the whole, all the employees, and I think, if not all, most people were there, so it was very transparent, got to ask questions. I think it was very good.
And I would add, from staff's perspective, I've heard feedback that they really appreciated being involved in those discussions.
Good.
Good.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to provide multiple options to the employees in keeping the same benefits or making it better depending on
Yep.
which one they
Depending upon the
choose
plan.
for their
Yep.
situation.
Yeah, very similar plan to what we have now, and then offering a more traditional plan as well, so I think hopefully it will satisfy everybody. Hopeful.
Probably not, but
Hopefully.
most of
I
them.
love your hope.
That laugh was so mean.
Very positive.
Okay, Plan Commission. Saw the results of their work tonight. Anything else to add?
No, because the minutes are in here from Board of Appeals, so I thought I would talk a little bit
Okay.
when we get to those minutes.
Okay.
SBAA.
Transitional office space will be inside NWTC for $100 monthly. Louise has told Britt that SBAA is still interested in the location behind Skipstone. However, she has a new possibility that's close hold at this time that she's going to want to consider. Also, they're revising the draft of the bus operating agreement, and they will forward their commentary and revisions on the draft to Parks.
Yeah, I spoke briefly to Louise. I guess they couldn't get all the board people together for the meeting, so they asked us if it was okay if it's got pushed off into December or January, if that was going to be a big issue to get it done or not. I said I didn't think it was.
That's 1.5% a month. They can take as long as you want.
Yep. Tourism zone.
For anyone who doesn't know, the new Door County Visitors Bureau Welcome Center building has been approved. It's a $2 million building. It'll be adjacent to the current office space, connected by a walkway for employees. Per Jack Moneypenny, it will be an experience center with educational displays focusing on ecotourism and sustainability. There's a name change coming for Door County Visitors Bureau. If you haven't heard, it'll be referred to moving forward as Destination Door County, and the unveiling of that new name will be May 3rd at the start of National Tourism Week. Also, fall media coverage, Door County was USA Today's Best Fall Foliage Contest winner. Highlights of the media coverage in the fall: 2 full pages in the St. Paul Pioneer Press, full page in the Milwaukee Journal, and a full page in AAA Living Magazine, fall color Door County.
Yeah, it seemed like everywhere online, there was something popping up about Door County destination. Awesome. I'll make one comment. This is not meant to be negative. It may sound negative, but it's not intended to be negative. It's a little ironic that not too many years ago, we couldn't even come up with $1 million in tourism funding, marketing for Door County. And now have so much money that we're building a $2 million visitor building. Utilities.
We did not meet in November. There are October minutes in the packet. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Youth Center.
Be meeting on December 10th. Janelle, I'll get you the information for the public agenda this week. We'll be working on adding parental chaperones to increase the number that we have during the event for Slime Fest 2, which will be here in February. Saturday to be determined, most likely the Saturday after the film festival.
Okay. Ad hoc Ice Rink Committee.
Kickoff fundraiser event went well. From Louise's perspective, she said the attendance was fair. I thought, considering the circumstances of how quick it all came together and whatnot, it was good. Raised just shy of $1,000.
Nice.
Next meeting will be December 17th. Recommendations, as the committee was essentially requested for initially, will be forwarded to Parks after the meeting.
Okay. Emergency management.
Has not met.
Have you been contacted by Dan Kane recently?
No,
Last
I
week
did
or two?
talk to, last week, no.
No, in the last week or two?
No.
No, okay.
I did talk to Chris and told him, and this was a few weeks ago, about how Mondays, worked for him and Dan. And Chris said that was, sometimes he might be on call or whatever, but that would work good for him. And because Parks meets on Mondays, I thought it might work okay for Chad, so he was gonna talk to Dan. I didn't hear anything from Chris. Then the last time I saw him, I think, which was here at a meeting, he said, yeah, that also worked good. So I was kind of waiting to get through Thanksgiving. Seen my family inform me Friday it's at my house.
What time are we inviting?
Yeah, are we talking extended family here or just?
Take the edge off of us.
So I figured maybe we can, at least get one meeting in, before Christmas, and then, try to meet regularly. And I'm hoping maybe that we could even, over the winter months, meet every couple of weeks on a Monday, and just, try to knock it out quicker, instead of just once a month and too much time.
Yeah, good.
Was he supposed to be contacting me?
Well, he had just sent a fair amount of information out to various people about the program and trying to get it kicked off in some of the communities and offering help and assistance, and I just wondered if he'd any conversation.
Did I get an email from him?
I don't know, did you?
I very well could have. Would I remember it? No.
No, okay.
Did he call me? No.
No, okay. Okay. Board of Adjustment,
Who?
BOA, I'm sorry, Board of Appeals. Sorry.
They call
County.
it the county.
County, yeah, right.
So I don't know if everybody on the board reads the whole entire packet, but we did have the Board of Appeals hearing last Thursday. And it was a unanimous decision that supported the Janelle as the administrator at the time, the Plan Commission and the Village Board, for denying the change of use. It is my understanding that we have not heard from Mr. Murphy since then, or his attorney on any further action. So we kind of felt pretty good about that, those of us that were involved. And the other question that I wanted to make is, because I testified, but we have no idea when these minutes will ever be approved, if I'll be alive or moved away or something. But on page 243, on line 46, previously mentioned email, Jack Burkhart references a 3-bedroom unit. I did say that, but that does not apply to this conversation. That had to do with the 2 commercial units.
Okay, so you want that out of there?
Yeah, can I request that as it's my testimony? And I did say it, but it related to the commercial units not pertaining to the 2nd and 3rd floors.
Okay, so what line is that on? I'm sorry.
46. It's what you have in
Okay,
parentheses.
so I'll just take that out.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how we can move forward because that won't be approved until,
Maybe you need to have a meeting of the BOA just to approve the minutes.
just to approve the minutes, we could.
Because it's an active case.
We could do that. Yeah,
We could schedule one.
yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
That's the best option.
Oh, right, because the other one was what, 4 years old?
I mean, yeah.
I think it was older than 4.
Was it? Oh, gosh.
Okay.
I actually found it fairly interesting reading.
Tom Sadler was excellent as chair.
Yes.
Sounds that way.
He does a great job.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it.
No closed?
Yes, that would be
Oh.
next.
Yeah.
I will make a motion that we're going to move into executive session
Second,
pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19851G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties, investment of public funds, or conduct other specified business whenever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session in Wisconsin statutes 19.851C to discuss personnel and employee benefits. Motion by Lino, second by Scott. Lino, yes.
Baker, yes.
Zashki, yes.
Bronco, yes.
Duffy, yes.
Berto, yes?
We're now in closed session. We'll give everybody a few minutes now. Button up.